Hi everyone, welcome back to In My Shoes. So this week's topic is about grieving, and I'm going to start with a disclaimer that just because you're grieving or you're in the grieving period does not mean that you do not love your child. You do love your child, and God knows you love your child, and I know that you would do anything for that special human being that God has blessed you with. So that said, I'm going to explain the stages of grieving as a special needs mom, and hopefully at the end of it all you're going to finish by how to deal with it and what sort of losses that you're going to feel or to expect along the journey for those who are just beginning. So I'll start. At the beginning, of course, when I was pregnant, Mika and I were excited. Like we knew what type of parents you're going to be. Of course, outdoor. So we imagined taking him for rock climbing, and we wanted him to learn how to swim. And of course, he was going to be a natural born camper. And I imagined his first day in school and my emotions. I'd be crying, of course. And I also went so far ahead in advance, and I actually even imagined myself at his wedding, And guys, it was beautiful. Yeah. So my 9 months of fantasizing and dreaming about this human being that I'd be blessed with final came to fruition on the Labor Day. So I'm delivering and I'm thinking, yes, it's time. I'm going to get this little human being that I can play with, and I can, when he calls me mom, I'll just melt. Like, guys, I had all these plans for him and all these dreams for him, based of course on what I'd seen other parents experience. Yeah. So fast forward, of course, I figured during the labor process I'd give birth, and then I'd be given the baby to breastfeed, and then I'd have a bonding moment, and to be so beautiful. So like every mother and every parent, as you dream about the type of life you're going to have. So us guys had even gone further ahead, yeah, and bought toys and Legos, and we have a tiny harness for him, and we had life jackets and tiny floaters, because we knew he'll get to 6 months, he'll be climbing, and we had all these expectations and all these dreams that we had for this small child. So when Nathan was born and everything went as it went, and things just didn't go right, yeah, that's when our grieving period began. We started going through the stages of grieving. So the first was shock and disbelief. Just imagine you've given birth and suddenly you're in the ICU. Your baby has tubes all over his face, and he's in the incubator, and like things haven't gone exactly as you had dreamed about or imagined. Yeah. So that's the first loss that you go through, and honestly, things go by so fast. In a matter of hours, everything is just everywhere. You're in shock, you're in complete disbelief over everything that is happening, and you can't even believe everything is happening to you. Not that you want other people to go through it, but as in you just hadn't put yourself in those shoes and imagine that it could happen. So after that, you go through the second stage, which is denial. By the second day, for me, denial was, I couldn't believe that all these things were happening to me first. Second, it's my firstborn, as in, guys. So I was in denial that all these things were happening, and I was also in denial that God wasn't healing him as fast as I wanted him to be healed, and that I wasn't going to hold him as soon as I thought I would have, or breastfed him as soon as I thought I would have. And My worst period during that time was having to leave hospital without him, because of course it was expensive to still pay for a bed for myself and have the child in the ICU. So one, I had to go home. So it was like, yes, I went home, but I was in complete denial that I had left my baby in hospital. So that led to, please note that all these stages happened in a period of time, not consequently. It's just that how things progressed and how I went through that grieving process. So that was the third stage, which was guilt. Guys, guilt is the worst stage you go through in terms of special needs parenting, because you beat yourself up for things that don't even make sense and they're not even your fault. Like, I remember for me, I kept asking myself, why did I, if only I hadn't gone to that hospital, if only I had a different doctor, if only there was a midwife, if only I made the right choices, if only I pushed harder. I even blamed myself for the condition, and I used to beat myself up so much because I was feeling so guilty over things that weren't even my fault. Like, it was out of my control, but I would feel guilty about them. And the one that would really break me was, I felt so guilty to leave him in hospital, yet that was the best decision that we could have done for him, and it was just painful. It was painful, and I'd beat myself up and I'd feel so guilty over everything. And of course, on top of that, I'd feel so guilty for grieving for a child who was still alive. But unknown to me, at that point, I was grieving for the dreams, the shattered dreams that I had for him. Those things, it's actually real. It's real grief, because you're feeling the loss of these dreams and these visions that you had for this child, and everything is different from what you had imagined. And of course, I'd feel guilty for grieving, because I haven't lost my child. So if I'm grieving, what should someone who's actually gone through physical loss of their child do? So I wouldn't talk about it, because I'd feel bad about feeling bad. And I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. And of course, because of the guilt, I was angry. Guys, I had anger. I would lash out at everyone, from the doctors to my mom to Mike to... Wow, I was just an angry person, I was even angry at God, because I would blame him for giving my son to me. I don't know how to explain that in plain terms, but it's an actual anger. Like, I was just angry at the world. I was feeling like I'd been robbed or deprived of something that belonged to me. It was rightfully mine. And I remember just feeling angry about the whole situation, including at my son for having the condition. Please note, it didn't mean that I didn't love my son. It just meant that I was grieving over the child that I thought I was going to have. Yeah. And after going through the anger, normally at that point I wasn't even self-aware. Everything was just everywhere, because even when we went back home, we have therapists coming in and out, and you have clinic visits, and on top of the vaccinations, you have your neurological visits to the neurologist, and then you have the nutritionist, because I'd get every time I'd go for clinic, Nathan has a problem with adding weight. So every time we'd go to the clinic, I'd be sent to the nutritionist. And if I found a nutritionist who didn't know my situation and my story, because they'd start lashing out. They're like, mama, haujui kuchunga mtoto wako, mbona haupatii mtoto wako chakula. Mind you, I'm really doing my best it's just that he's not gaining weight. Yeah. So when I'd have such feedback, especially from hospital, I'd cry. I'd cry. And that's when I started going through my fifth stage, which was depression.